The journey. I've planned my trip to Canada for the Bald Eagle photography workshop for 3/4 of a year, and I was very excited about it. But the journey to Canada became a disaster. The original journey was from Dortmund to Düsseldorf, from there to Frankfurt, and then via Vancouver to Campbell River, a week later back to Vancouver. A week before the departure, I found out that my flight from Campbell River to Vancouver was cancelled, so I had to rebook. The day before the departure, I found out that my flight from Vancouver to Campbell River was cancelled as well, so rebooking again. On my way to Düsseldorf, I found out that my flight from Düsseldorf to Frankfurt was also cancelled, and therefore, of course, the flight to Vancouver was not possible either. The hotline gave me a flight from Düsseldorf to Munich via Vancouver with a connection flight to Campbell River next day. So I flew to Munich to find out that my connection flight to Campbell River was not sure and I would find out more in Vancouver. So I flew to Vancouver. The flight was calm and actually without events, except that you flew over Greenland. But the inner unrest, whether and how I would get to Vancouver Island for my photo workshop, remained. However, there were beautiful views on the Rocky Mountains and the lakes there. When I arrived in Vancouver, I got the information that I couldn't take the flight to Campbell River because of booking difficulties. So at 9 o'clock in the evening, I had to book the last of 19 seats on a small flight to Campbell River myself. The next morning, it was a mini plane with only window seats, then on to Campbell River. After half an hour flight, unfortunately with not quite as clear weather, over the beautiful landscape of British Columbia, I managed to arrive in time for the photo workshop in Campbell River. Then it was time to check in at the hotel, unpack in the room and set up. This was the view from the hotel room. Then I explored the area a bit and looked where the boat would depart the next day. In the afternoon, we met our photo coach and organizer, Liron Gertsman, who told us what to expect the next 4 days on the water, and he gave us important tips how to take great pictures of the bald eagles. We were excited and curious. The weather forecast looked completely different than great, but let's see. Sometimes the forecast is not correct. Let's hope for the best. Day 1. The next morning the adventure started. First we went down to the harbor and put on the overall with the life vest. This is mandatory for zodiacs. That will be the terrain on which we will go, and Jimmy Juss Island is where the eagle action will happen. Our captain is Bex and she explains the zodiacs so we could get familiar with it. And then we went out. Our first goal was a buoy on which seals relaxed. They had made it comfortable, cuddled together and gazed into the day. Then it went through the island world of Vancouver Island. The weather was, as expected, not very good, but it didn't rain after all. At our next stop, we found purple starfish that lived there in the tidal zone. Then we got the first impression of what currents here in the waters of Vancouver Islands mean. And we went through that, what we thought was wild water with a lot of current. This is a hotel near Jimmy Juss Island, the night from $1,000. Then we went to Stewart Island, where we always took our lunch. There is a small hut with a terrace that was very cozy. There were also hummingbirds, but more of them later. Here we also took our group photo. Heather, Ken, Sandy, Brian, Josh, Marian, Dieter, Alex and Liron. At low tide, a view of Jimmy Juss Island. And we all waited for the change from low to high tide. And then we went from Stewart Island to Jimmy Juss Island. And there they sat, the bald eagles waiting for the hake, the fish. They sat on the big tree and waited for the tidal change. Then the water started to flow, more and more powerful. But the eagles waited for the change of the tide, which washes the hake from great depths to the surface, where they could simply grab them with their talons. And then they started to fly, more and more, everywhere. It is said that the flight of the eagles is majestic. And it really is, especially when you see them fly in slow motion. There are so many, you don't even know where to look, let alone which eagle to focus with the camera. And it would be rather easy if they would fly as slow as you see them flying here, but they don't do that. That's the difficulty right in the beginning, because you don't even know which eagle you should point the camera to. And you can't read the flight of the eagles yet. Which eagle only flies back, which eagle is about to fish, which eagle makes a change of direction, which can be quite spectacular. All of this I could not see at all on the first day. But now you see the speed at which the eagles really fly. And there you can see it's pretty fast. And you don't even know who to follow, where to point the camera. Right, left, top, bottom. Something's happening everywhere. There are eagles fishing, for example. But some only fly. That's really difficult, and I was totally overwhelmed on the first day. So I decided to photograph mainly eagles in flight. Here are a few nice examples. With a huge wingspan, up to 2 meters 30 or close to 8 feet, absolutely impressive. They're not even bothered by us. They fly very close to the boat, so you would think then it's easy to take pictures of them then, but they're just very fast. Here are 2 eagles who wanted to catch the same fish, but only the lower one was lucky. Since there's a great competition and the eagles sometimes snatch the fish from each other in the air, it often happens that the eagles eat the fish right after catching them while they still fly. Then they fly back again. As I said, dozens or hundreds of eagles are in the air at the same time. And after catching the fish, they fly back to their trees and wait until more hake is washed to the surface. On this first day, we saw a lot of eagles sitting in the trees. The sheer amount is simply impressive. And then it starts again, they fly, and some still sit. They like to sit far outside on the branches to get a good overview. The bald eagles only get their white head at the age of 5. Here a young one with an adult eagle, and here an eagle landing on a branch. Eagles are proud birds with a sharp eye. Here another juvenile, and this adult eagle apparently likes flowers. The current is already strong, but it gets even stronger when we go to the rapids on the other side of Stewart Island at Vancouver Bay. Usually there are also eagles, because the hake also gets washed to the surface by the current there. But you can see how strong the current is here, where the water swirls. If you fall into the water here, I don't know if you can get out alive. All in front of this beautiful scenery. Here you can see the water forming a whirlpool. The boat is sometimes rocking back and forth just by riding straight through the water. A roller coaster without rails. A big compliment to our Captain Bex, who has always safely driven us through the wildest currents. Really fascinating to ride through this wild water. With his huge tele lens, Brian is always looking for something to take pictures of. Like these seals, for example. They are playing in the water in front of the rocks, and sometimes they even kiss. But they're also curious who we are and what we want here. Others are just lazy on the rocks. Unfortunately, you couldn't sunbathe in this weather, but rest. And sometimes you also have a blue or a red eye. Here we drive back through the rough currents. Sometimes opposite water masses shake the boat back and forth. Here a whirlpool that really has depth. I think about 3 to 5 feet deep. We're almost at the end of the current, and here again a big whirlpool. Now we are on our way back to Campbell River. On the way back, the water was still very calm and the weather is okay. It is raining in the mountains, but thank God not here in the water. That looks like a garage 15 yards above the water level. The tree grows out of the rock, and here minerals have colored the rock turquoise. When we drove back to Campbell River for dinner, we saw a rainbow. After dinner, we went out again. The sea was so restless that my smartwatch counted 12,000 steps, even though I sat the whole time. And Brian measured 220 meters or 250 yards altitude, which we allegedly climbed. At Middle Edge Island, many seals swam in the surf. They are beautiful against the sun on a small rock near the island. But they're also fighting about their positions in the group. You can see the scars in their fur. 2 rainbows over the rock with the seals, and the rays of the sun lighten up the scenes beautifully. The cliffs at sunset with seagulls and cormorants. And then we drove back towards the sun, back to Campbell River. This was a packed day in which we also learned a lot about what we can do better tomorrow. Day 2. On the second day, we left the port to the northwest. We were in a good mood. Alex, Sandy, Heather, Brian, and we were curious what the day would bring. We went up through the archipelago, past the house with a garage over the water, to a small bay. Brex and Liron had discovered a young bear who was looking for food between the tree trunks and the stones. Then we continued our trip, and based on the current, we could see the flood coming. The flood shifts every day for about 15 minutes, and the eagles know that. They don't come too early and don't come too late. They're always there on time. And after about 90 minutes, we arrived at Jimmy Juss Island, and the eagles were there already, waiting for the flood to bring the fish back to the surface. Some flew off to take a look at the situation. Again and again, fascinating to see so many bald eagles and to be able to observe them in flight. Adult and juvenile eagles were both in the air looking for fish. Here a young bird who's on the hunt. You can really see when he sees and spots the fish. Here. Then he flies down, extends his talons to then grab the fish safely. That's the moment. To then fly away with the fish in his claws. The splashing of the water always looks particularly beautiful. Here you can really see how the flood swells up the water and the eagle catches his fish. This adult eagle on the approach, but he was not successful. Sometimes they do miss to grab the hake. This eagle is more lucky. Here he got the fish and flies away with it. Sometimes the eagles eat the fish in flight, sometimes not. It is pure luck to be able to take pictures or video when they do it. Here he caught a nice big fish. Now some pictures of how the eagle flies away with his fish. I was hoping that he would eat it in flight, but I was not lucky this time. He just flew away holding the hake tight in his talons. Ready to eat, the fish in his beak. This is a sequence where two eagles fight for a fish. The right eagle has caught the fish, the left eagle is trying to steal it from the talons of the other. And he finally succeeds, so that the right eagle has to fly on without any fish. He looks quite surprised. These eagles were very far away, so I had to zoom in to the max and crop a lot in post to be able to see what is happening. This adult bald eagle wants to avoid such a situation and takes the fish into his beak right away to eat him in flight. This young bird also has two fish and he also eats them while he's in the air. Now a few slow motions. Enjoy the eagles flying away with their prey, or fish their prey out of the surface of the water and take it with them. This young bird looks around and has seen his prey. He lowers his flight, has a long approach, and then grabs it out of the water. Precise, perfect grab. This young bald eagle has discovered his prey and is on the approach. But he probably misjudged himself. But the adult bald eagle, on the other hand, catches his fish. Another young eagle on the lookout. You can see how he searches the surface of the water. And now he has spotted his prey and goes into the gliding flight over to the fish. A correction of his flight path and a precise grab gets him the fish into his talons. I continued to film this eagle for a while, but unfortunately I turned the camera off too early, because in the end you can see how he takes the fish into his beak to eat it. Here again how fast the eagles really fly. We continued our trip and went to the rapids on the other side of Vancouver Bay. And you can see here again how fast and intense the water is flowing. The whole bay looks wavy. Amazing what a sharp edge there is between wavy water and relatively calm water. From now on the weather cleared up and it became beautiful. How the sun and blue sky can change the mood, amazing. This time the eagles were there, here in Vancouver Bay, on the trees and in the air. And they were already looking for the fish. He has found one and gets him out of the wild water. An old bald eagle on the approach in the sunlight. Beautiful. Riding with the boat through the rapids is always impressive and an experience. The boat is torn back and forth. Madness. But for the eagle it's good. The fish come up and they have food. Spectacular flight maneuvers when they recognize fish. and the target-oriented flying. It's always nice to be able to observe and photograph these animals in flight. While we were watching the eagles, our Captain Bex got the message via radio that orcas have been spotted in Philip's Arm. So we went there. The landscape in Philip's Arm is also impressive. A dead end from sea surrounded by mountains. We could even spot some waterfalls. We had to search quite a lot, but in the end we found the orcas. They can be identified by the fin and the white dots and stripes. This family was a grandmother, a mother with 3 young animals, 2 females and a male. It's amazing how exact that could be determined. They swam very close to the shore. Actually, it all looked very harmless, but Bex and Liron said that they were actually hunting for dolphins' porpoise.
The residents have just like a more rounded dorsal fin. The transients, which these are, have more of a pointed shark-like dorsal fin, I find.
So these are quite pointy.
Yeah, so these are transients.
As long as they don't do what the European ones do.
And they will not, because all behavior is learned behavior in the case of orcas.
Then we saw 2 black bears, but they were very far away, unfortunately. From Philip's Arm, then we went back to Stewart Island, where we had lunch. The weather got better and better. The sun and the shadows on the mountains just looked great. On the way we saw also a school of dolphins or porpoises. I can't keep them apart. Who knows if that was the one that the orcas actually hunted. Here a nice overview over the bay. Back in Stewart Island we ate our lunch and then we were able to take pictures of a few hummingbirds. These are very fast little birds, which, thank God, sometimes fly static. However, you need very high shutter speeds for them. Did you know that hummingbirds are peeing in the air? I did not, but what do I know? I don't even know the name of this beautiful bird. Liron, help! Liron knows all the birds. This was our boat with Bex, our captain. She was seemingly enjoying herself when I took pictures. The weather cleared up completely. And with the sun and the blue sky, the colors were really popping. On the way, the scenery was absolutely stunning. The colors, the light, the shadows, just wow. This time of the day, the waters were very calm in and around the islands of Vancouver Island. Here a panorama view of this beautiful bay. We didn't really want this boat trip to end. On the horizon you can then see a cloud that actually could not have been more fitting. You can only guess it, but you can see it much better here. A cloud in the shape of an eagle during an eagle photo workshop. That can't be true, right? We continued our trip to a bay in front of Quadra Island. You can't say that the landscape got boring. We were lucky enough to be able to see and take pictures of a humpback whale in front of this magnificent landscape. Liron always put a lot of emphasis on the backgrounds of the pictures, and here you can see why. Then the sunset began. A magnificent color show spread. The cameras were ready to record it. It started with light blue and light orange. And then the setting sun lit the mountains with red rays. That was nice. But then it got really crazy. because the light became pastel, very light colors, from light blue, pink to purple, all reflecting incredibly on the water. That was just out of the world, a mood that I've never experienced before. Very impressive. Then the light changed again to what you expect at a sunset. And then we drove back, but not without a panoramic view over this bay. To capture the sunset. Thus the day ended with another spectacular show of colors that you could not have imagined any more beautiful. We were all very euphoric by what we have experienced that day. Then Bex steered our boat safely back to Campbell River, where we all had a good night's sleep to get ready for the next day. Day 3. On the morning of the third day, we made an excursion to the north with a car. A few days earlier, Liron had seen owls in the forest up there. And we will try to find them and take some pictures. After a short drive, we arrived at our destination. Liron has an amazing knowledge about birds, American birds, and birds in general. Unfortunately, we did not find any owls in the forest, but beautiful trees, ferns, and a few smaller birds, of which Liron of course knew exactly what they were called, how they sing, and how they live. Unbelievable. Here a bird on the back of a horse. And haha, I know this one. That's an American robin. Then we went back on the boat, going north. In Menzies Bay, we saw a whale. We thought about whether we wanted to stay longer, but in the end we decided against it, because the flood slowly came in and we did not want to miss the start of the feeding frenzy of the bald eagles. So we headed on and arrived on time at Jimmy Juss Island, and the eagles were already in the air. And they dove down to catch the hake. Here are two eagles fighting for a fish. The right eagle has the fish and the left eagle is getting closer and closer and wants to steal the fish from the other eagle. But the right, or now the lower eagle, defends. They flew a while next to each other before the left or upper eagle made a new attempt to steal the fish. The other eagle slowed down and pulled the fish up, so his food competitor could not grab it. So you have to catch the fish yourself again. Like this eagle, who makes a perfect catch and flies away with the big fish. For nobody should steal his fish, he eats it directly in flight. As soon as he had the fish straight to the beak to swallow, the wind turned the fish back to the side, so that he had to make a new attempt. It took a while, but in the end it worked. This eagle sees a fish again, turns in a spectacular flight maneuver to get to the fish. Fly to the fish, grab it with the sharp talons, and fly away. Here some nice pictures of bald eagles in flight. He is blinking with his left eye. And this eagle seems to be blind on the left eye, because you can't see the pupil. These huge birds with a wingspan of 2 meters 30 or 7 feet and 8 inches are very agile and change the direction of flight very quickly. And then you get something you don't want, a tail shot, that you can only see the bird from behind. Here a close-up from both the head and then from the talons. They can grow up to 5 centimeters or 2 inches, which is huge. If the eagles have a fish in their talons, they don't let go easily anymore. Here again a clip where you can see how fast the eagles really fly and how difficult it is to decide for the right eagle. Because there's always another eagle coming back into the picture and you have to think which eagle to keep in frame. We're on the 3rd day and we already have more experience with the flight of the eagles and how to read it correctly. This eagle is searching and I was lucky and went down and grabbed a fish out of the water. Again and again, it is nice to be able to capture these kind of pictures with a camera. And then he swallowed the fish again because he didn't want it to be stolen from him. This time it worked out well. Here a young eagle on the approach, highly concentrated, stretching out the talons. There's the fish and he's approaching. Now he's directly over the fish, grabs the fish and flies away with it. Here a juvenile eagle with a spectacular flight maneuver. The change of direction led to the fact that he practically flew with his back pointing downwards. Today there weren't as many eagles in the tree, which probably means that there are more fish in the water and the eagles were on the way to catch it. This fish he missed though. This time it's better. Grab and fly away with the fish. Again and again it's nice to see the splashing of the water when the eagle grabs a fish out of the water. And the next fish. Here an eagle fishing in front of the beautiful scenery of Vancouver Island. Here an eagle on a branch, and here with 2 other colleagues. They sat very calmly and looked around, and then the middle one became a little cheeky and he turned to the right one. He moves back and looks down very shy. The left eagle had enough and flew away. Now action is going to happen. This eagle has discovered a big fish and is immediately getting it out of the water to eat it. But he's not alone and he knows that. And that's why he tries to eat as quickly and as much as possible. Already another eagle is coming, and he eats the innards of the fish at once. This young eagle tears out piece by piece and eats as quickly as possible. But an adult eagle comes and chases the young eagle away. But he takes the fish head with him. But that doesn't help him a lot, because the adult eagle chases him away again. And then they eat the prey. There are more and more eagles coming to fight for the fish. You don't believe that there's so much meat on a single fish. More and more eagles passing by. Here you see already 5. Liron said that even in the salmon rivers, where the eagles eat the salmon, he has never seen so many eagles fighting for a single fish. In the end, there were about a dozen bald eagles. Here, the right young eagle attacks an old eagle on the left and scares him away. You can clearly see how hard the competition for food is. Nobody is giving away anything. And then the fight for this one fish was over. That was a very special experience. After this exciting experience of eagles that fought for the fish on the ground, they are back in the air and fly. Here with a particularly large fish, and this eagle likes to sit between flowers. And then we went back into the white waters of the incoming high tide, which shook the boat with incredible force while we were driving over it. It's incredible what force was created there. Madness. You can really see the funnel as the water goes down. Amazing. Then we went again from Jimmy Juss Island to Vancouver Bay, our second point where we always were. And even there, the flood is insanely strong. Today and tomorrow are the strongest day of the tide. The eagles are there too, but at the moment, the incoming high tide is the most interesting thing. You can count the different directions in which the water flows in these pictures. And again, a funnel. But as wild as it looks, the Zodiac always glides relatively quiet over the wild waters. Sometimes it's shaking back and forth a bit, but never really wild. We always felt very safe. Wild waters. I really would like to see the underwater topography to find out how the different currents are created. Here you can see how the boat really fights against the current. We will do that too in a moment, but it's also clear that with our 400 horsepower, we've got enough power to escape from this current easily. You can see it in this boat that pulls away with ease. The water flows downhill. Unbelievable. After a short lunch in Stewart Island, we went south again. The weather was moderate and we just wanted to get from A to B. And here we had some encounters with whales again. We could nicely see how the fluke was raised when the whale dived. That was perfect sight that we could make beautiful pictures of. This whale came straight towards us. And then he dived off and we don't know where it went up again. Once the exhaled whale air was driven over to us, a very special smell. It is an exciting experience to be able to observe these huge animals so closely. Then it became evening, and after a small detour to Middle Edge Island, where we saw the sea lions and seals again, then we went back to Campbell River, where we saw a spectacular sunset again. The evening moods were always very special here on Vancouver Island. They were something magical. Day 4. On the last day, Bex explained us the route again. The weather was really bad, but the mood was good. Because of the rain, we now took another boat. And then we went out again. We still had a bit of time until the flood came in, so we first went to Frederick Arm. There was a very nice show of the nature. Actually quite normal clouds, but sometimes clouds can be very beautiful when there are fog just over the surface. It was a really enchanting mood, the fog over the forest and the trees. It really hung in there, but that's what made the mood. But even in such a mood, there are seaplanes that brought people to their destinations. Then we went back to Phillips Arm, but didn't stay there long, and continued then to drive to Dents Rapids, where Bex got the news that orcas could be seen there. And the news were right. There they were, a big family. Probably 2 males with a mighty back fins. But there were more. It was raining heavily and we always had to protect our cameras from the rain. You can also see it in the pictures. It was a very wet day. The orca family sometimes swam very close to the shore. It was a very quiet up and down when they dived. Again and again the air fountains while they were breathing out. It was a big family with many members. Sometimes they were also very close to other boats. Then the high tide rolled in and we went back to Jimmy Juss Island. More people wanted to see the eagles and flew in. Then the flood came back and the eagles were already waiting in the rain on the trees. And they flew. The rain didn't bother them. My cameras were pretty disturbed in the rain and I didn't get many good pictures because of the lot of raindrops in the air. But then we got lucky and the rain stopped sometimes, and then nice pictures like these could be made again. And here's the next one, ready to grab the fish. Here a totally soaked juvenile eagle snatching the fish and flying away. But the eagles are also hungry in the rain, and the fish also swam to the surface, so that no matter if sun or rain, the eagle hunted. Here you can see the amount of water in the air. Sometimes nice pictures could be made despite of the rain, and sometimes the cameras were disturbed by the rain. Here a young eagle with his prey flying towards me, and then past me. This young eagle is hungry, and he eats his fish right on the fly. Here another eagle eating on the fly. Here another adult bald eagle nose diving towards his prey, snatching it from the surface and flying away with it. A slow motion shot of a flying eagle, how he grabs the fish. Here are a few good shots of the eagle with the fish in his beak. I find the feathers of the young eagles fascinating again and again. I also think it's great to see adult bald eagles' wings from above. Again, an eagle in the approach to the fish, but this time he missed it. He looks a little drenched. This one has the fish, flying away happily. This one gets the fish as well. See the splashing of the water? A young eagle flying back home. And an adult one gives a flight show, turning around, diving down, staring at the fish. Here you can see him on the left side. The eagle focuses on it, stretches out the talons, and then grabs the fish out of the water. Nice to see the reflections and the splashing water in these pictures. We were lucky that by the end of the feeding frenzy, the rain stopped and we could take nice pictures. In total, I took over 19,000 pictures on this 4-day trip on the water. It was very difficult to throw out many of the pictures and to put together the best pictures and videos for this film. There are few chances in the world to be able to observe so many bald eagles in one place fishing for hake. That was quite a privilege and a very exciting task to take pictures of that event. Here at the end, again, an adult bald eagle who proudly flies away with his fish. After we made short stops again in Vancouver Bay and in Stewart Island, we headed back to Campbell River for the last time. Sometimes the sea was calm and sometimes it was quite rough, but Bex always got us safely through the waves. And Liron always kept the overview. Bex and Liron were always in conversation with us participants. That was very nice. A perfect team. We had a lot of fun together. Ken talking with Brian, Alex signs over the day, Sandy watches her pictures, Bex is always up for a joke, and Liron Gertsman was our perfect photo coach and wildlife expert. And then our 4-day photo safari to the bald eagles was over. The next few days. On the next day we had a look at this wolf that was made from driftwood. Then Alex, Heather and I were in front of a First Nation statue. Then I went back to Vancouver and this little plane. The flight was quiet and it only took 3/4 of an hour. The little plane from Papier-Mâché in the local airport of Vancouver really made my day. Then I moved into a nice little hotel. And in the next 3 days I taught a modern Anis seminar in the Taekwondo school of Master Nick Cheng and his wife Jessica. And then I went back to Germany. After the start, one had nice views of the bay and the city center. Here a good view towards Vancouver Island with the mountains and waterways. Good memories there. Here again the center, the city of Vancouver. And then over the Rocky Mountains I went back via Greenland to Germany. After the many great experiences that I had on Vancouver Island, the whole stress of the journey completely stepped into the background. And the return journey went absolutely smoothly to bring me home to Dortmund.